Welcome to Spam Filter for Your Brain, bite-sized ponderings on how our thoughts influence our behaviour and our lives, and because we're all connected, how our thoughts impact the world. I'm here to help people reconnect with their bodies and declutter their brains. And I don't believe that we should just magically know how our emotions and our thoughts impact our lives if no one ever teaches us. So let's learn this stuff together. I know so many people who are struggling to make ends meet at the moment and struggling with the cost of living, and I'm not even sure that I agree that it should be called the cost of living, really. I think that's a quite disgusting term if you look at it. Quite a really bleak turn of phrase, I feel like. It's actually the cost of capitalism, or the cost of profit, is probably how it should be phrased. But I know a lot of people who are really struggling with money and how our finances are stretched to the max to make things and make ends meet at the moment. And I just wanted to speak about that a little bit this week because you might have sort of written off financial situation as something that thought work, well-being, self-care can't be applied to, when actually I think it is completely opposite. And it's one of the areas where it really benefits to have a good grasp on the stories that we're telling ourselves and the stuff that's going on in our head, to be able to work out what is going on in our lives and to stop things spiraling out of control. And one of the things that I would really encourage people to have a look at is where you can kind of separate out the fact from fiction. And if you were to maybe get a piece of paper and write down all of the thoughts that you're having about money at the moment, I think that you'll probably find a lot of the things that you write down are very, probably quite fear-based, dramatic versions of what the worst case scenario could be, or what the possible outcomes could be, or what you're frightened of happening. And having a look at some of these stories for ourselves, being able to identify what these stories are, is going to be able to help us extract them a little bit from what we actually practically need to do to be able to help our situation. So when we are telling ourselves that we don't have enough, that we're not going to be able to meet the bills, that this isn't going to work, that you can't see a way out of here, that you can't possibly imagine how this is ever going to change, that it has always been like that. These kind of stories that I think are really common for a lot of us when it comes to money. This wastes quite a lot of time and energy and puts us into quite a triggered fear state. I'm not a fan of the word triggered, but I think you kind of get the gist. It's like really super hyper vigilant, for it associates money with danger. And when we're in that state, it's not exactly putting us in a clear frame of mind, just quite simply to be able to look at the figures. What is in the bank account? What is the bill that is coming in? What bills are due? How much money is going to be in your account when that bill hits? When are you going to be able to pay it? If you're not able to pay it, who can you reach out to for support? Are there any citizens advice people? Are there any friends that can help you? Who do you need to speak to about it if you are not able to meet this bill? How can you be as resourced as you can for what is coming up and needing to go out of your bank account? You don't have the time and the energy to do that, or you have a lot less time and energy to do that when you are spiraling off in, oh my God, I don't know if this is how I'm ever going to get this to work. This is falling apart at the seams. How am I going to jigsaw everything together this month? These kind of thoughts are quite simply energy sucks. So as well as writing things down and just trying to see the stories that you're telling yourself, that initially will just give you a little bit of relief of you being able to see what's actually going on in your head and stop feeling like you have to hold all of the stuff and keep everything. It's a bit like the analogy of juggling that we quite often have with our emotions, of trying to keep all the balls in the air. Once you've written it down, you can see what you're actually dealing with. And then some of these stories you're going to be able to look at and go, I mean, yeah, I can see why I'm telling myself that really often, but actually that's really unlikely to happen. And some of it you're going to look at and go, yeah, I can see why that would make me really petrified to look at my bank account. And some of it you're like, well, that bit's true. There's nothing I can do about it, Anna. I don't know why you're telling me to do stuff like this. And try and separate them out into the things that you think are simply facts, the things that you think are stuff that you could work on, and the things that you can really identify are probably not very helpful to tell yourself. And then I invite you to just have a little pause and a think about, what do you think someone who would be able to solve this, what do you think they might be feeling? Not someone who was just like, I mean, if you want someone who is just born on a little cushion of money and has money spewing out of all of their pipes, and it's just, throwing money around like it is, like they're in a waterfall of abundance. Quite like the idea of a waterfall of abundance, to be honest. But just thinking about what someone who in your situation thinks they could solve it, what might they be feeling? Or someone who wasn't in your situation, who had a slightly different financial situation to you, but was still a tricky one, and someone who was just sort of in a place where they realised that they would find their own solution, what emotion would they be feeling? And when you've identified that emotion, we can look at the fact that our emotions are always our great big drivers. We're always trying to get towards something we want to feel or away from something that we don't want to feel. So in this scenario, really often what we're trying not to feel is fear, because fear puts us in a state of not being able to think clearly and not be able to look at the rational options that we have in front of us. So when you've identified what someone who is able to solve it, what they might be feeling, then take one step back and go, okay, someone who is feeling that, maybe it's motivated, maybe it is a sense of potential, maybe it is a sense of feeling like no matter what, they're loved. So if, for example, you're struggling to meet your rent this month, how likely is it actually that you're going to end up on the street? Would there be friends that you could stay with? Do you have family members that you could stay with? Could you go to the Citizens Advice Bureau? Is there any way that you can apply for a housing benefit? What options are available to you? I think quite easily we can spiral into the worst case scenario, but we don't finish the sentence. So it would be, oh my God, I can't pay my rent. This is just going to be awful. I don't know what's going to happen. But actually have a think about what would happen. How likely is it that 1 week after you can't pay your rent that you're going to end up out on the street? For most of us, and I by no means am dismissing this as a very real problem for a lot of people, but for most of us, and probably most people listening to this, it is pretty unlikely that you're going to end up completely destitute within days. And so if you were to be thinking about someone who was able to solve this, someone who is thinking that there could be potential, they might be feeling something like resourced or confident, or maybe slightly nervous but a little bit inquisitive about what could be happening. They might be feeling curious about how they're going to make this work. These might all sound preposterous emotions for you to be feeling when you're in that state of panic, but I'm not asking you to look at it from a state of panic. I'm inviting you to have a look at it from someone who could solve it, like we're just playing pretend right now. And then if I look at someone who is having these thoughts, like there is this kind of feeling like I'm going to try and work this out, I'm going to do my best to see what I can come up with, I'm going to go against what I feel is embarrassing or shameful and pick up the phone and call my mate and say I need to borrow some money. What are the things that, if you were feeling like you were resourced or you were curious or you did think it was a possibility, what kind of thoughts would be driving those emotions? What would someone who is able to solve it, what might they be thinking? Because when you can list some thoughts out like that, you can begin to just very gently start to move yourself more in a direction of someone who is thinking like that. So if I'm thinking there is a chance that I could sort this out, there is a chance that I have a friend that I could ask, I'm going to have the courage to pick up the phone to the person who I owe the money to say, is there any chance that I could, extend the deadline by 2 weeks? Is there any way that I could pick up some extra work somewhere? These kind of thoughts are going to give you more resourcefulness and more ideas and more possibilities of solving the issue than thinking, oh my God, this is never going to work. I'm going to lose the roof over my head. How will I'm never going to solve this. It's always been the same. It's not about denying the situation that you're in. It's just one of them really depletes you and leaves you in a state of fear, so you're not able to take any action. And one of them looks towards how you can motivate yourself to find as many solutions as possible until one of them works. Thought work is not about trying to gaslight yourself into deciding that you can't solve the problems of your own volition. It is about getting yourself into a place where you can find as many resources as you can to move you towards a place where you feel and you create more safety in your life. I hope that this has been useful for you. If you'd like more help and support on it, please do reach out. We're all over at selfcareschool.co.uk. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on the podcast here, I would love to invite you to Self-Care School. Self-Care School is a membership site where we have group coaching calls every week. We have a whole load of courses that you can dip into for whatever suits your needs. We have courses on confidence, body image, timekeeping, how to manage big emotions, overwhelm, loads and loads of stuff in there. You can kind of pick out whatever you want to work on. There is a big library of workbooks, which includes journal prompts and questions for you to be able to apply this work to your own life. And we have the most amazing community where people support each other. We learn from each other, and you get to work alongside people with quite often very different life situations to your own, and we learn so much together in community. If you would like some more of this, please do hop over to selfcareschool.co.uk.